I heartily endorse this event or product.
Ahoy, hoy, everybody, and welcome to Talking Simpsons. I am one of your hosts, Bob Mackey, the Slurms Mackenzie enjoyer, and who is here with me today?
I have fortunately not suffered from death by snoo snoo. It's Henry Gilbert.
That's right, and yes, we have another interview for you this week, and it's somebody who never worked on The Simpsons, but we're still calling this a Talking Simpsons interview because it's our most famous show, so deal with it up front.
Yeah.
But you're going to enjoy this because today we're talking to Lou Morton, an amazing writer. He's written for News Radio, Futurama, Veep, Silicon Valley, and of course, he is a writer on the new Beavis and Butthead movie, and he is the showrunner of the new Beavis and Butthead series on Paramount Plus. So he basically has touched everything that we love, and we talked about him for about an hour, about his entire career, and some very specific Beavis and Butthead questions.
Yes, yeah. So if you're enjoying the new season, and by the way, we recorded this when only 4 episodes were out. He teases some future ones, but so if you guys are like, why did they ask about episode 6? We haven't seen it yet, guys.
So right now it's Saturday, August 20th.
Yes, yeah.
Putting this directly in time.
But he shares so many great stories about Beavis and Butthead, and I really loved hearing his theory on how to write Beavis and Butthead. Like what level of stupidity can you write them at? How do you make a story work with them? And we've been loving both Do the Universe and Return season so much that getting answers from Lou about it was really amazing. We really appreciate it.
If you enjoy Lou on the interview, please tweet at him. He's at Lou Morton, LEWMORTON. Just say, hey, we enjoyed the interview, and I think our guests always like to hear that.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And he's always right now he's more active on Twitter than usual because he's promoting the new season too, and so yeah, it's what I guess he mentions too that if you sign up for Paramount Plus with code Nachos, you get some free months. So.
A free month.
A free month.
We can't overpromise here.
Yeah. Hey, look, not a guarantee.
Hey, it's worth $9.99 for more Beavis and Butthead.
I agree.
Without further ado, here is our interview with the fantastic Lou Morton. So joining us today is Lou Morton. Welcome to the show, Lou, and thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Man, it's so awesome to talk to you, Lou, because you've worked on so many shows we really, really enjoy, and now you're I guess are you the head writer on Beavis and Butthead, the new season?
Head writer, showrunner.
Okay, that's why I figured. So let's start at the beginning. Did your comedy writing career did it begin at the Harvard Lampoon?
It did, yeah. I began at the Harvard Lampoon. What I really wanted to do is write funny pieces for magazines. And sort of funny magazines, by the time I graduated, funny magazines kind of had gone away. Sort of the National Lampoon was a shell of its former self. And I sort of ended up doing television, the next best thing.
And were there any, how many of your future coworkers were on the Lampoon with you back at in school?
Oh, a lot. A couple at Saturday Night Live and a couple at News Radio and at Futurama. There were a few people from the Lampoon on Futurama, but probably only one was a classmate of mine.
So early in your career, you wrote for a few seasons of SNL, and we love talking to people who have been on that show because we never know who writes the sketches. It's never really called out. Can you name anything from your time there you're particularly proud of, or any funny stories from that era of SNL?
I wrote a sketch where Patrick Stewart owns an erotic cake bakery, but the only thing he thinks is erotic is women going to the bathroom.
Yes,
I love that.
Immediately when you said Patrick Stewart Cake Store, most of the sketch just unfurled in my mind. So yeah.
And I wrote a lot of sketches with Rob Schneider that first year I was there, including You Put Your Weed in There, a not as marginally beloved sketch from the mid-'90s.
Well, did you? I saw like your first one was the Charles Barkley Nirvana episode, which people just remember it a lot for just the crazy picture of Nirvana standing next to Charles Barkley. Like that seems like a crazy time to start at SNL.
it was pretty great because the first thing you do is see Nirvana live from about 20 feet away. And you get to watch the rehearsal, the dress rehearsal performance, and then the live performance, really from like 25 feet away, like just dodging the cameras, and that was pretty great.
That sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah. I wrote with Rob this sketch where he was co-hosting like a QVC show where they were selling sports memorabilia, but all the sports memorabilia was like the bones of old baseball players. and I wrote the commercial parody of that episode too. But for the life of me, I will never remember what it was. It's long enough ago. But that episode, there was a sketch where it's like it was Charles Barkley hosting it was Charles Barkley as the counselor at a donkey basketball camp. It was like I guess that's something people do in the Midwest is like play basketball on donkeys for as like a fundraiser. I had never heard of it, but at any rate, there I was, like my first week in show business, and backstage there were stagehands literally dragging donkeys back, down the hallways, by 8
It's showbiz
in 30 Rockefeller Center. Yeah, it very much felt like I was in showbiz.
A Patrick Stewart story also reminds me. Have you heard the John Mulaney bit about Patrick Stewart saying "salt and pepper" on that episode?
No.
We'll look it up because that the comedian John Mulaney very inspired. He tells a very funny joke just about Patrick Stewart introducing salt and pepper on that episode.
That's funny.
You were in New York then, and I guess a lot of Lampoon guys, they either went to SNL or to Letterman. Like, did you know the Letterman guys around the same time?
I didn't know any Letterman guys at that time. I've since met Steve Young, who I think was there at the time, but he's older than me. I didn't really know him. That was just when Letterman was moving into the new theater.
Oh, okay. That's right. So he wouldn't have been in 30 Rock anymore with you guys.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
The Conan show was just starting.
SNL then goes straight into Paul Simms starting up News Radio,
right.
and you were in season 1 from 1 to 4, right?
I was there from 2 to 4. I wasn't there for the first 6 episodes.
Okay.
I was there season 2 to 4.
One of my favorite stories I've heard from the News Radio commentaries. The DVD commentaries are some of my favorite DVD commentaries because you guys just tell every story. It sounds like that's. And
can you find those DVD commentaries anywhere? They really are good.
Oh no! Well, I mean, I bought the first set, so I just have them. I've heard that recent sets come without the commentaries.
Oh, that's such a shame.
So I'm like, what the hell?
They're one of the few good commentaries, I feel like.
There should be a gray market somewhere for DVD commentaries that are out of print, just somewhere you can listen to them. It's an untapped market.
One of my favorite things to learn about the News Radio writing room was that you guys were all playing like games against each other, like Doom. You were playing Doom LAN parties. Like you were these gamer writers back when people were not playing video games in writers' rooms that much, I would bet.
Well, News Radio, Paul hired a bunch of people who had never worked in sitcoms before. So he wanted to sort of teach us his own habits and not have anyone come in with sitcom habits. So most of us came from Variety, and so like a lot of us came from New York, and so we all moved to Los Angeles. We didn't know anybody besides each other, and so we just spent all our free time at the office because we didn't know anybody, and so I had nowhere else to go. My first year in Los Angeles, I spent all of my time at the News Radio office, and the only place I really knew about in Los Angeles besides that was like the Beverly Center. So occasionally I would drive to the Beverly Center, but that's not really, that doesn't make, all you know is Beverly Center. Los Angeles is not that great. So we spent all of our time there, and so we played a lot of video games there, and we hung out there. We read tons and tons of magazines. We were there all night. It was sort of thought in the comedy writing community at the time that we were being horribly exploited and made to work all night. But really, it's just because we had no other friends.
Do you wish that you had Twitch streaming back then and you guys could have just like played Doom or just a shooter online?
Oh no, we didn't want to talk to people we didn't know in any context, really.
And it sounds like, I mean, a lot of your friends and colleagues worked on The Simpsons. Was that ever a path that you tried to pursue? You went from News Radio Season 4 to Futurama. Was there ever any interest in going on The Simpsons or submitting a spec script or anything like that?
No, it was pretty exciting to go on Futurama because it felt like it was a new thing. And it seemed appealing to be on the ground floor of something new. And for like at least a week, the room at Futurama was like Matt Groening, Dave Cohen, Ken Keeler, and me. So it was fun being there, like at the very beginning. But no, I know like there was at least a couple people who went straight from Futurama to The Simpsons and sort of have been there ever since. But like I never did.
Well, and yeah, I mean, one of your old coworkers from News Radio went to The Simpsons season 13, Brian Kelly. So yeah, I was curious if you guys.
I was like Brian Kelly, Stuart Burns, and Jeff Westbrook, all three of them. Although Brian was never on Futurama. Yeah, he went from I guess just from News Radio to The Simpsons.
Well, and I have one other News Radio question too, just because we're big retro gaming fans as well, and to hear the story on the DVD commentary, like just a little bit of it, how did you guys get Eugene Jarvis on the show?
Well, we wanted to do an episode where Dave Foley was obsessed with a video game, and it had ruined his life when he was a teenager. And then somehow this video game appears in the office again, and it ruins his life again. So that's the story we wanted to do. So it's like, what old arcade game do we want to do? We at the time were like, because again, we didn't know anyone else besides each other, and we're all single and like making TV money. So like we would go down to like, there was this this auction in Fullerton where they would auction off arcade games, and it was mostly for people who like owned arcades or like miniature golf emporiums or whatever. But like we would go down there and like buy arcade games and pinball machines at this auction, and then bring them back to the office. And we had this room in the office that wasn't really being used for anything. We just made it like an old-fashioned arcade, and so we filled it with all these things. And like so we settled on like Stargate Defender as being the game, which seemed like the right amount of semi-obscure, but you've heard of it, 80s arcade game. And then we just called him up. I don't remember if it was me or Brian Kelly who just called him up. We just found a way to contact him. We just contacted him and said, "Do you want to be on?" And like then he agreed, and then it's just like, well, let's make him an extra. And we never really like asked the network or anybody. We just sort of like, he arrived and it's like, okay, go ahead and put your costume on. But yeah, he ended up having like a tiny role as the delivery guy. Yeah, so like at the time I was pretty obsessed with Robotron, so I got to play Robotron with Eugene Jarvis before the show, and like he's pretty good at it. He's not that great.
Was there a similar amounts of gaming happening within the Futurama writing room?
No, not really. I like had my I had my Robotron. I owned a stand-up Robotron, and I had it in my office at Futurama, so I play it sometimes. And like if you have any video games in an office, the production assistants get unbelievably good at them. And I think I ended up, when I left that job, I ended up like giving my Robotron to the writer's assistant.
Oh,
it's a nice gift.
Yeah.
It also like weighs 400 pounds.
You take it. Yeah. Well, speaking of Futurama, we want to know your experience like on the inside as the show was taking off in its first few years. We know on the record there were a lot of late nights. We know David Cohen quit briefly because things were pretty tough, and he came back to the show. It sounded like a very difficult operation to get the show off the ground, and then it ended up being disliked by the network. What was it like to be on the inside of a production like that?
Well, starting a new animated show is really hard. You have to figure out what it is. We had to figure out like how big these science fiction stories were, and so like it's we not only had to make it funny, but we had to make this science fiction world work. And so yeah, there were like I would say any new show, any that's a comedy, there's going to be a lot of late nights because it's just difficult. That first season is always really difficult. And so yeah, we worked a lot of hours, we worked a lot of days. But I feel like we always felt like we had something. I always felt like it was going to be good. And then like when it came out, we really liked it, and like the network did not care about it at all. And they would basically like we thought we were going to air like after the Simpsons, and instead we aired basically during football. Fox had football, so the second like we were aired at like 7 p.m. on Sunday, and like so like the football game doesn't end before 7 p.m. on Sunday, so like we were preempted as often as not. But it was just like being at news radio where we were promised we would be on between Friends and Seinfeld, and then we were bounced around the schedule forever.
Your must-see Tuesday night. Yeah, for briefly.
I mean, all the Futurama fans learned to hate sports even more than they already did.
Yeah, like, and like Matt Groening coming from The Simpsons, he did not want to take notes at all because The Simpsons didn't, and I guess he felt like it would be. It's a real step back to go from something where you're not taking notes at all to something where they're giving you notes. And like, this was in the days that Fox just wanted to micromanage every single thing. It's like now that most TV is streaming, this doesn't happen the same way it used to. I don't believe, at least not in anything that I've worked on in a very long time. But the network used to just note shows very, very heavily. Whereas now there's a little bit more sense of we paid a lot of money for the show. We paid people who theoretically know how to make the show, so we're just going to let them make it. That was not the idea at all back then. So Matt Groening's position was like, we're taking no notes at all. And they're like, can we fax you some notes and you don't even have to read them? And I was like, no. And so we're immediately like at loggerheads with the network. Like, it seemed at the time that might be why they didn't like the show, but like I imagine like that the ego between network executives and Matt Groening, that might not have been the whole of why we were on Fox Network, Fox Network Siberia, but I don't think it helped.
Yeah, I mean, we do a podcast about Futurama. We dig deep into the production history,
wow.
And when we look at the seasons, we see, after season 2, everything is out of order. There's months of delays. I mean, we lived through it, so we know. But now we can look at the details and just realize like how mistreated it was. And you never would have believed the show would be rebooted basically 3 times at this point. Are you surprised by the the power of Futurama, how it just keeps coming back?
No, I'm not. I'm not. It's a really good show, and it's like it has a really specific appeal. It's like it's really like serious about its sci-fi, and it's really serious about its comedy. And like if you're really into comedy, it cares about you, and if you're really into sci-fi, it cares about you. It's like it's the kind of sci-fi where if you know a lot about science, you'll always be rewarded and not punished, which I feel is rarely true. If you guys know this if you do a podcast about Futurama, but like it was a very like overeducated writing staff that knew a lot about science and science fiction. I remember like that first week I was there, where like there weren't a lot of writers yet. There was a point where the whole discussion about the show got sidetracked into like the argument about whether or not Mars's moons were geosynchronous with Mars.
Wow.
And then it's like no one really knew, so like they're trying to derive it mathematically. So it's like I couldn't like I was just along for the ride. It was sort of like being in a really great graduate seminar that I hadn't taken the right prerequisites for.
I believe there are 4 PhDs on that original writing staff.
But they were all Ken Keeler.
Yes, I think he had them all.
Were there 4 PhDs? There were a lot of people who dropped out of PhD programs, but like
Okay, I know Bill Odenkirk, Ken Keeler,
Bill Odenkirk.
Dave Cohen.
Bill Odenkirk wasn't there initially.
Oh yeah, he's season 2. I think.
But Jeff Westbrook was a professor at UCSD. He was a computer science professor, and he took a sabbatical and spent his sabbatical writing on Futurama. And I remember there was a day he had to go into Dave Cohen's office and said, like, you have to. I'm sorry, but like, it would really help me if you can tell me whether or not you're going to pick up my option, because I have to know to tell them if I'm teaching any courses next semester. And they paid. He didn't. He never went back. They picked up his option. He's been at the Simpsons. After that show ended, he's been at the Simpsons ever since.
Which show would you say in the 4 seasons had a rougher time with networks in your experience? Was it News Radio or Futurama?
Well, it's definitely News Radio. I mean, Futurama, we had a tough time in that we had a bad time slot, and like we were never like, it was sort of like this moment where, or not a moment of slow dawning realization. It's like, oh, we're never going to be as big as The Simpsons. Like that's just not going to happen, and it seems like Fox never gave that the chance to happen, which was kind of a bummer. But News Radio, we also got lots of notes. It's like News Radio, we got lots and lots of notes until finally they kind of gave up on us. Like they didn't like, so they kept. It's sort of like we weren't worth the executive's time. Because we were like, News Radio was incredibly low rated. And like we constantly thought we were going to get canceled, and we were always what they say, on the bubble. But like after season 2 is like they kind of stopped giving notes, and like we had more and more junior executives covering the show, because I think like they just kind of. We just weren't worth. They just didn't care. So like we were so unsuccessful that we were under their radar, which was great.
Well, we love asking writers this because it makes them think about the thousands of jokes they've written over the years. But we know if your name is on a script, doesn't mean you have responsibility for everything.
Right.
So we like to ask writers, do you have a favorite joke or a favorite scene that you wrote that is in someone else's credited episode?
Someone else's script. Oh, that's a really good question. Oh shoot. Oh, News Radio. There was a song that I wrote that I think it was in somebody's episode. They're like, whereas someone in one of the extras had died, and there was Dave Foley brings in like a counselor to help everyone through their mourning about this extra had died, and sort of the basis of the episode was. In our show, really in any workplace sitcom, there are all these extras crossing by who clearly work there, but no one ever talks to them. And like you don't know any, like it seems like they're just not friends with that guy. So we had like one of the extras dies, and they all feel guilty they didn't really know him. And so Matthew goes in, and he's just written a song about this guy who died. And it's just a song about Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. I should realize you wrote that one. Well, yeah, I guess on the Futurama episodes, your credit writing on one of our favorites in the first run was Mother's Day. But that almost felt like it was like when we watched it now, we're like, that could have been a movie. Like it's the robots just turn on everybody. Were you guys ever thinking? I mean, obviously you weren't going to just make a movie then. But
movies are hard, my friends. No one wants to write a movie. They're hard. What you want is a TV show that feels like it could have been a movie. Like that's the goal. It's sort of like it only has to be 20 minutes long and it has a lot in it, and you feel like, oh, I wanted more. That's good. That's what I feel like you want. But no, Beavis and Butthead is something where like we're trying to write a half-hour special and accidentally wrote a movie, and then we had to produce a whole movie. A lot of work. No, that one was like uh, in college at one point I thought I was gonna major in like government and I like in like poli sci, and I took this course where I read like almost all of Marx. It's like I so like I used it all for the Marxist greeting card. I was reading the rebellion.
It all checks out.
Yeah, they have nothing. The that robot green card had nothing to lose but their shackles. That's true.
Yeah.
Another one of the ones you're credit writing on is Raging Bender, which had the Ultimate Robot Fighting League, and I noticed that and News Radio. Like I was into mixed martial arts before it was cool. That's why, but it was, but that was like you never saw on TV back then, like actual references to the UFC or Ultimate Fighting or any of that back then.
Oh, it was very new.
Mm.
Like for Raging Bender, it was very new. And really, it's a show about like 1950s wrestling or like 1950s boxing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we just used like there's this new thing, UFC, so we just used the name. But like, I'm sure I knew nothing about UFC. Do we talk about UFC in News Radio? If that was almost certainly because Joe Rogan would have been into it.
I assumed it was a Joe Rogan pitch, but I was like, oh wait, they did MMA fighting on an episode of News Radio. Yes, yeah.
Well, it wasn't much that Joe Rogan would pitch things. It's just he would talk a lot, and we would just take everything he said and just put it in the script.
When you were starting on the show, definitely seems like you guys like had big plans for Zap Brannigan, but then season 2 starts with Brannigan Begin Again, which is like the super Zap episode. Like, when did you guys like fall in love with Zap Brannigan?
Oh, like the second from minute one. It's like everyone loved. It's like, yeah, I think the reason we love Zap Brannigan is we love Kip Croker. And it's sort of like just the interplay between those two voices. So it's like, when did we, like, as great as the Zap Brannigan voice is, when did we fall in love with Zap Brannigan? We heard Kip Croker's voice, I think. And just they're such a great comedy team. And it's just great, you know, like there's so much comedy we had from characters with no self-doubt, with misplaced confidence. Sort of that's what Bender is mainly, but like this is sort of like the more villainous version. So we were always going to do lots and lots of Zap Brannigan stuff. That first season, it was tough to bring people back because we were just sort of establishing what the show was, and it was tough to say, well, let's have multiple Zap Brannigan episodes in this first season, which was only like 8 or 9 episodes, because first of all, like we just needed to develop the main characters who worked at Planet Express, and like second of all, what if everyone hates Zap Brannigan, or like what if it doesn't really, what if people don't like it as much as we do, and like we don't, and like we're stuck with it, you know, like because like remember like News Radio or like animation has such a long lead time that you don't get any feedback until really late.
And I'm sure that hearing Billy West's performance inspired you to write more for the character.
Oh,
I assume the first time you heard Billy do the voice.
Yeah, we all really liked it, and like that, and him and Kiff is delightful. So we knew it was coming back, but like it's tough to have secondary characters recur when you have, like, there were just so many characters who actually worked at Planet Express that we had to serve. So it's tough to give him his second episode before you've done an Amy episode.
And earlier this year, we covered Amazon Women in the Mood. And we thought it was very funny, but we were also slightly shocked by how dirty it was for a show from 20 years ago that aired on Fox at 7 p.m. Were there any challenges getting that on the air? And by the way, one of B. Arthur's best performances in her entire career.
Well, she was so good, because that's like that, her big long line about being a woman in a man's world. That makes no sense. I mean, like, that is an unperformable line. It's really long and it's really logically convoluted, and like it kind of makes no sense. And like I was really worried. Like, this is an unperformable line. What are we going to do for B. Arthur? And like, it's not unperformable B. Arthur. She was just, she's a genius. But I don't think so. I think like those '90s sitcoms were all really dirty. And I think like they're like people were very happy to have stuff have a lot of like sexual double entendre language on TV at that point. I don't think that's what standards and practices really cared about. It's I feel like NBC would have liked news radio to be dirtier. And like we, our sensibility was more like classic TV, like Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, which wasn't dirty at all, so I don't think so. I think they were fine with this new snoo.
And in those, since hearing that you were like the third guy in the room so early in Futurama, like how early were you guys figuring out the, not all sitcoms back then had long arcs or planned to have like, where you've got the secret reveals of like Nibbler or Leela's parents or whatever. And
continuity as well.
Yeah. And tons of continuity. Like how much were you planning that early on?
Zero.
Oh,
zero. Yeah, like the reveal of Nibbler and the reveal of Leela's parents. Oh no, we figured out that for that episode and just tried to make it work with what we had already established.
Several classic Futurama writers came back for the Comedy Central seasons, and yourself included. And I got to say, the late Philip J. Fry is like seriously one of the best Futurama episodes ever.
Oh, thank you.
Was it easy to get back into the groove with all the characters?
Well, I didn't come back full time. I just wrote a couple, maybe like 3 freelance scripts. But no, it's like coming home.
The concept of time travel that only happens forward was so clever, and that they had to just go around the horn every time. But then on top of that, like it still had like the heart that makes so many classic Futurama episodes so memorable.
Yeah, the idea of a forwards only time machine was Matt Groening's idea, and then like, it was just a matter of having like the Fry Leela love story, actually take it seriously enough to make it play.
And how did working on Futurama compare to other animated shows you worked on? I assume obviously fewer PhDs in the room, but what were the other major differences?
Oh, they're all totally different. I mean, like, we did big science fiction stories that we took seriously. We took the emotional, relationships between the characters seriously. Family Guy is really like mainly everything is to serve the cutaways.
Before you went on to Beavis and Butthead, I know David Cohen wrote in the original seasons of Beavis and Butthead. Like, were you watching those back then?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Everyone was. This was like I just graduated from college when Beavis and Butthead came out, but yeah, definitely, yeah. Stu Burns too from Futurama got his first job was writing Beavis and Butthead. That's definitely something I've wanted to do on this run of Beavis and Butthead is give people their first job.
Yeah, we are watching the new series. It's great, by the way. And we notice returning writers like Sam Johnson and Chris Marcel, and then a lot of newer writers as well, all doing different kinds of episodes that still all feel correct in the Beavis and Butthead mold.
We buy a lot of episodes freelance. And that's like what they did back then, and that's sort of how we feel like we can give scripts to people with no credits.
Oh, well, I was Jess Dweck from. I was like, oh, I know that person from Twitter, like from just funny tweets, and then writing on the new Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, she wrote some good episodes. Yeah, we've hired like mostly writers without a ton of credits and freelances and a smattering of heavy hitters from the old days, like Chris Brown and Chris Marcel and Sam Johnson. Chris Marcel's actually working full time on the show now.
Oh, great!
Oh, cool.
been for a
Yeah,
while.
we've looked at Beavis and Butthead on our other podcast. After revisiting the shows as adults, we have a real appreciation for the writing because there's like a specificity to the characters and how they interact with each other, and to how difficult it is to make these dumb characters do anything. What's your philosophy when it comes to what makes these characters work and how you write an episode?
Well, the thing about Beavis and Butthead is if they get out of character for even 1 second, the whole thing comes crashing down. And so you just have to go in that there's no joke funny enough to bring them out of character. Which is not entirely true in the video segments. When they're watching the videos, you'll notice they're a little smarter. Just so you can do jokes, they can refer to things. But like in the cartoon segments, they don't know anything, and they have a vocabulary of about 100 words, if that. And it's sort of like writing a Beavis and Butthead episode is like building like a Lego house, but you only have 8 Legos. And so like every episode, you only have the same 8 Legos. You should have to find a different way to put them together. But it's just keeping it simple. And like like the learning curve of Beavis and Butthead is figuring out how much needs to happen in an episode. And it's not much, but it's something. You need like a very tiny story, and it's just a very simple story, and then it just like very simple. They talk really slow. Everything happens pretty slowly. It's like the slowest animated show like I've ever heard of. Where like most animated shows, the dialogue is cut really tight, so there's no pauses. And like I remember in Futurama editing dialogue, and the first thing you do is anytime an actor breathes, you cut it, you snip it out, just close up the space. And no, Beavis and Butthead, we add pauses. We tell the actors to slow down. It's just like it's a very slow, deliberate show. But like, yeah, the philosophy is basically like you can't bring them out of character to do a joke even for 1 second.
Yeah, I was curious. Was Silicon Valley was that what got you into Mike Judge's orbit, or had you worked with him before?
Silicon Valley.
Okay, and so you guys just kind of clicked. Really, he knew you'd be good for this job.
I guess so. Yeah. I guess I seem dumb enough.
Yeah, I mean, at first it was strange to see. When I saw who was writing the movie, Lou Morton, I recognized your name immediately. But then I thought, well, Futurama writer. But then I went back to the podcast that we did and thought, well, Beavis and Butthead is a difficult show to write. So I'm sure there will be Futurama style ideas with the slightly complex but stupid Beavis and Butthead comedy, and that's what the movie turned out to be entirely.
Yeah, the thing about like writing a Beavis and Butthead movie is it's the problem in Futurama we have with Fry sometimes, that like your main character is too dumb to understand the story that they're in. And like that was a problem we had in like some early Futuramas, that like the story doesn't work. We learned the hard way that like the story doesn't work if Fry doesn't understand the stakes of his own story. Like Fry had like, so we sort of quickly learned like Fry has to understand what's going on enough that he's invested in the outcome. And like that, like Fry always needs to he needs to be actively working towards his goal because he wants the goal, and he has to be smart enough for that to happen, for that to work. But like Beavis and Butthead, they can't be smart enough to achieve their goal or pursue a goal or anything. And so it's like that's why we ended up putting in adding smart Beavis and Butthead chasing them, and the governor chasing them, and the CIA chasing them, just because you need people pursuing goals in a movie, and Beavis and Butthead can't do it.
So you're officially saying Fry is smarter than Beavis and or Butthead, then.
Oh, he definitely is, yes.
It's on the record now. And yeah, you were saying earlier in the interview that this Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe started as a special, but evolved into the movie that we know now. How did that happen exactly?
Well, we knew they wanted a special, and there already existed this, like long before I joined the project, this script for a live action Beavis and Butthead movie that was written by Mike and Ian and Guy Maxstone Graham. And so we just took that script and rewrote it to sort of suit what we felt we needed this movie to do. It seemed like we had enough there to be movie length, and it seemed like we could make a movie plot. And so we just, like, there was a point, like, I took Christmas break 2 years ago and just sort of like took everything we talked about and just and took the existing script and just like wrote 100 pages in 2 weeks just to sort of almost to prove that it wouldn't work. It's like, this looks like it will work. I guess we have to do a movie. But there's one thing like this, like we had to add. I feel like the thing that really made it work better than made the movie work sort of as a movie is adding the Beavis emotional story, which is really hard to do with those two characters who barely have emotions at all. Like Butthead has no emotions at all. Beavis sort of has the emotions of a 2-year-old, and sort of poorly understood emotions. But like we sort of like I feel like the thing that really made it come together is sort of like this putting big stakes on if Beavis can say "I love you" to the woman who's trying to kill him.
Actually, Beavis is seen talking to Siri and really opening up was like that was such a kind of beautiful scene to finally see Beavis open up like that.
I feel like that acting on that scene, like the in animation, there's two types of acting. There's the vocal acting and the drawn acting, the animated acting. The animated acting on that scene is unbelievably good.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the one thing. Like it's hard. Like all the people who animated it in the '90s, they're at the old animators home, I suppose. We certainly can't find that many of them. We have like Jeffrey Johnson from the old days, and we have Johnny Rice from the old days, who are both great directors. But mostly it's all new people. But like that's the thing, is like finding, just like in the writing, there's they don't have many things they can do and stay within characters. In acting, their acting is unbelievably limited in what they can and can't do. It's like they can almost not move their arms. It's like and like it's the kind of thing when they do and it's something that's acting that seems out of character, you immediately notice it and it immediately pulls you out. And so it's like you have these. So it's like that was like a really genius bit of storyboarding where they like. He's really expressive in that scene. Beavis is really expressive in that scene without getting out of his incredibly limited visual vocabulary of the poses he can do.
Yeah, it seems like this could just be the episodes that have aired so far as of this recording, but it seems like with the movie and the episodes, I don't know if it's intentional, but a lot of it does seem to be exploring how Beavis is actually a very sweet boy, but life keeps sending him down the wrong paths.
Yeah. There's more Butthead coming.
Good.
We're definitely leading with Beavis episodes sort of fall early in the schedule, but yeah, that's something I always like in comedy, and we did a lot on Veep. That like your characters could be happy, and the choice of happiness is right in front of them, and like they could easily take it, but their character flaws prevent them and consign them to miserableness. We were kind of like everyone on Veep had the story that like if they just quit, there's this thing right here that could make them happy if they just quit politics and did that. I just can't. And like sort of that with Beavis.
Yeah, so far there have been 2 episodes that felt experimental but still fit within the constraints of the formula. The one with Beavis talking to the fire, and the one that just aired last week with Beavis and the annoying new friend. It feels like it was interesting to see Beavis kind of on his own without the Butthead dynamic, but it still really worked well.
Beavis is a good character to put with other people. He wants things, but he's totally helpless. Yeah, I was pretty excited getting started to do episodes that break the format a little bit. And like I felt like the Trapped in a Box breaks format a little bit. And that like
Mhm.
so much of it is they're trapped, they don't move, which is sort of a weird thing to do in animation. And we have one in season 2 where they're like they fall in the sewer, and at the point where the lights are out, and we play like at least a solid minute on a black screen. And it's sort of like we're sort of figuring out like what do we have to do to let people know their TVs aren't broken. Black screen, we're still figuring out like do we need to see like one little bit of light up in the corner so you know your TV didn't shut off.
People are going to be canceling their Paramount Plus subscriptions, thinking that it's broken. Yeah. No, I love that Beavis in those 2 episodes. Bob mentioned that he's kind of, if he's not with Butthead, he's just like wandering around town looking for Butthead, and it's just like so sad.
They're really codependent.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of in the...
Oh, and also in the fire episode, I love too that you take this concept that was like one of the most controversial things in the first series of Beavis and Butthead about Beavis's love of fire, and then you turn that into the healthiest relationship he's ever had, which he rejects.
Yeah, turns out they should have really leaned into fire back then. The fire, that's why they're so bad. They didn't put on a fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny like what is and isn't taboo in the 90s and now. Whereas now it's just like you ask Paramount Plus and like really the executives are Comedy Central executives. And like we're really gonna lean into Beavis Loves Fire, and they're like, great.
There are much more dangerous things now.
Yeah.
And working with Mike Judge, was it easy for him to just slip back into these voices? Because every time, I mean, Beavis and Butthead has come back twice now, and every time I'm just so surprised that the voices sound identical to me. And he's just such a skilled voice actor too. On top of that, is he pitching things in the voices? Is he like? It feels like he must have editorial control if he is the conduit through which all writing must flow. Pretty much.
Course. Yeah, of course he does. Yeah, he's super involved in the whole thing. Yeah, I mean he's Beavis and Butthead. I it seems really effortless for him to keep doing the voices, but I'm not doing them. I think like Beavis is harder to do than it was when he was 30, just because it's so raspy. I think it's just physically harder. But he sure does it. It sounds great to me, and he's like such a great performer. I mean, without his performance, there's no way any of it is funny. None of it seems like it would be funny on the page.
Well, yeah, and he has to scream. Well, speaking of being raspy, like Beavis has to scream a lot in the show too. Like so many horrible things happen, so he's got to scream quite a lot. Yeah,
we limit how often he has to actually scream.
That's good for the safety of Mike Judge.
Or like, because like it's a good thing to do with voice actors in general. Is like you save all the screaming for the end, and like you try to limit how many times you ask them to scream. Like you don't do 8 takes of the scream.
Oh well, so in do the universe too, you guys made this big move to have the characters teleported to 2022. Not that they really notice at first, but they like so how important was for you to have these ideas of Beavis and Butthead interact with modern day?
We like the idea of Beavis and Butthead interacting with modern day, and it's sort of a lot of like me and Mike talking about like, do we have enough modern day? Is that like, should we have more modern day in the new episodes? And it's like, well, I guess Escape Room was sort of modern day, so like maybe that I guess that's good, but like really like that's not what Beavis and Butthead is here to do. To comment on modern day. It's just like we're just being as funny as we can. And the fact that it's set in today means we're going to end up we're going to end up commenting on things that are happening today because it just Beavis and Butthead takes place in the world. but like being satirical is not like what Mike and I wake up in the morning excited to do. It's like we're just trying to make the show as funny as we can. And the show is like at its heart, it's like the show is basically like it's closer to the Three Stooges than any modern show. That it's sort of two incredibly dumb guys run into these secondary characters. The secondary characters give them the benefit of the doubt, and it's a big mistake. It's like that's sort of like,
Well, as we wrap up here, Lou, I wanted to know, as a Futurama writer, you're used to having an audience full of pedantic nerds who love continuity, and it seems to me the movie ending does not really mesh with the series reboot. I was completely fine with it. I thought, is Van Driesen aged up? But as soon as I saw Mr. Anderson was still alive as the world's oldest World War II vet, I was like, okay, that's fine. I just like that the characters are back. What was your idea about like if there would be continuity between the movie and the show? Like, were you thinking about that at all?
well, at one point, we definitely were. It was going to be continuity. We were never going to talk about what happened in the movie, in the show, because like that's not the kind of show Beavis and Butthead is, with continuing stories and stuff. And it just felt like you shouldn't be required to watch the movie to understand a Beavis and Butthead episode. But like we did age up Van Driesen and Mr. Anderson a lot at first, and then we just scaled it back and scaled it back and scaled it back. But like Van Driesen is aged up. Sort of if you looked at the like his model now and his 90s model right like next to each other, you would notice. But like if it's not right next to each other, you might not notice. But like it is the idea that like well Van Driesen will be in his he'll be in his 50s, and like Mr. Anderson is supposed to be super old now. But like
he does need a hearing aid that he didn't need before.
But like and like you'll notice, like you haven't seen Stuart and Todd. Like
Right.
we're like Stuart and Todd did get older, and at some point we were gonna have like old fat Todd, and like at some point old fat Todd was in the movie, and just got cut. But the thing with like we sort of learned and leaned into is that we're not that interested in continuity, and like we're very happy for the episodes to be self-contained. I defy anyone to have them to say what order they had, that they happen in any sort of order. Like nothing in episode 2 will have informed anything that's going to happen in episode 20. They certainly don't learn things or grow, and we kill them at the end of a lot of episodes. Like that killing them at the end of every episode is anti-continuity, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, the continuity bit too in the movie. Another of my favorite jokes is you guys tease answering like, "Who's Beavis's mom? Like, what's her deal?" And you will not give it to us. You have
no. Like I was petrified. Like she was saying something underneath the garbage disposal, just so we could, just so it would sound like there's something you couldn't hear, just like the faint noise of something you couldn't hear. And like I was petrified that what she was saying would somehow end up on the closed caption. Like we don't. You're not allowed to know anything about their parents. That's something Mike said a lot of times. But like the reason you never see their parents is basically it's inspired by Charlie Brown, where you never see their parents, and it's just the show is from their point of view, and from their point of view, their parents are completely unimportant. So their parents kind of aren't an important part of their lives. Their lives are what you see. You know, that's what's important to them. So just like it's not. We just don't show it. They have parents. It's sort of unclear now if they have parents, because like we still refer to their parents, even though we're in some ways 25 years. They went 25 years in the future. But again, we kind of have come around to that we don't care about continuity at all.
Well, I thought the movie was very funny, but I also walked away thinking, I'm glad I know it's Beavis's house now.
Yes, we do know that now.
Yeah.
It's a fact.
I try out like Mike said. No, I always thought it was Beavis's house. Like,
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's apparently established somewhere in some book or something that it's Butthead's house. But
well, there's book continuity, and then there's what happens in the show. Like that's an extra level of
right.
continuity.
We don't have a canon. The Catholic Church has a canon. We don't have a canon. And later we do. They're coming. We're doing episodes where they're older, where we sort of explain. We bring Smart Beavis and Butthead back to sort of explain why they're older in this episode.
Oh, great.
I love those guys.
And Butthead, and basically say, like, we're much smarter than you. We spend our time, and what do we do because we're so smart? We spend our time watching the most interesting universe in the whole multiverse, which is the one where Beavis and Butthead are old. And so here's something we observed once. You won't understand it because it's too complicated, but do your best. And then it's an episode with Smart Beavis.
Oh, man, I can't wait.
Well, we should wrap up soon with you, Lou.
Yeah.
We appreciate your time. Great answers. I love learning more about your career, Futurama, Beavis and Butthead News Radio, all the great stuff. Anything else you want to tease about? Anything you're working on? Anything you want to tease about? Anything coming up on Beavis and Butthead this season?
We've got a lot coming. We've got Beavis and Butthead are old. Stuart, Beavis and Butthead, when they're old, run into old Stuart. That's coming. They die at the end of a lot more episodes.
Oh, that's great.
And at the very end, we have an entire episode of Smart Beavis and Butthead.
Excellent.
Oh, hell yeah.
I was going to ask,
Beavis and Butthead go to Earth and abduct Mr. Anderson.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
I was going to ask, can we confirm Cornholio, or is this still a secret?
Yes. There are Cornhole in the 24 episodes and 48 scripts. We're doing, I believe I can promise you 2 Cornholios.
Excellent. It's on the record now.
Yeah. And
Breaking news.
when you're digging deep into, like, there's only so many music videos that exist now, so you guys are digging deep into the social media as well for great videos too.
Right. Yeah, that's turned out to be pretty fruitful. Doing the social media stuff, doing YouTubes and TikToks. It was really, really hard getting any videos to clear at first, because you need like the people who make a lot of YouTube videos, it turns out these days, don't care about being on TV at all. They're like, are you paying me a huge amount of money? No? Well, then get lost. But now that people see what it's like to be on Beavis and Butthead, I'm thinking it'll be easier to clear, because maybe it'll look like fun to be made fun of by Beavis and Butthead. And like, we're still doing the music videos, which I think we were a little afraid at first. Like, if we do music videos, will it seem like we're trapped in the past because there are no music videos anymore? People don't watch music videos, but we've kind of convinced ourselves, at least, that people do watch music videos still. Yeah. And like, popular music videos are like on YouTube get like 1 billion views. So
yeah, honestly, music videos feel more alive now than they did for the 2011 reboot, I think. Yeah,
that's it. It feels like they're like a little bit, there's not like it was when in the glory days of MTV, when you sitting down and watching music videos would be like every afternoon. But it definitely feels like it's like, it doesn't feel like we made them up. I feel like it's a real thing. And like, we did the BTS one, and it does. I feel like it does feel relevant doing the music videos in a way we were afraid maybe it wouldn't. So we're gonna keep going.
Well, man, we can't wait to see the rest of the season, Lou. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for your time, Lou. And the new season is amazing. If you haven't seen it, listeners at home, check it out on Paramount Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Use code word nachos for 3 months.
Ooh
boy.